do this every Monday. And I'm not saying Mondays don't still follow Sunday scaries, but they will get better. There will always be something to pull you off the long view and into the short game, the putting fires out game. It feels like just like that, fighting fire sometimes until it doesn't. You have to be more and more on and deciding what are the boundaries that you're setting. You'll have more and more times where your inflow and revenue is continuing to grow and your time demands are not, when you just decide this is the way it's going to be. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to She Means Fitness Business. It's a division of Voice for Fitness. And at Voice for Fitness, we know that you want to be an inspirational example to other midlife women. And to do that, you have to have a profitable health and fitness business. And, the problem is usually a lack of clients, or you're charging too little and spending too much time servicing them, which will make you feel very uncertain about whether this is actually sustainable and something that you will enjoy doing for years to come. And I know exactly how it feels, having the education, having the heart to help, and starting from zero at age 49. And I'd done it before, but now I had to prove that I can do it. And every step that I've been teaching for the last 20 years worked. And it did. And if I can go from zero, literally, to six-figure months, so can you. So it's why I've coached internationally for almost 25 years now. I do it by this 3 steps. We get you more clients. We make sure we have more profit from that revenue you're pulling in. And we make sure you keep the freedom of your time, because in the end, this is what we all want. So you can book a call if it's right for you to work with me right now. But in the meantime, I want you to download the Health and Fitness Professionals Business Scorecard. You can look at that in 2 minutes and decide, oh my goodness, these are my holes. So you can stop feeling like your dream is slipping away and watch other influencers who are less qualified, less heart-centered, make sales and get more clients. And instead, you could start increasing your revenue by $5,000 a month in the first 90 days easily. If you're already way over and above that, you should be able to increase your overall revenue by at least 25% by the end of the year. I promise. All right. And it all comes down to organization and really boundaries. This is personal, professional boundaries when it comes down to it. And your business will run away with you. If you don't plan your day, somebody else is. It's just, you're going to be called out on a whim. I want to say this right up front. So shout out to my daily operations manager. And here's the deal. He knows that if I can and he calls, I will answer. I mean, if I'm at the gym, I may not be able to hear very well, but I will pick it up. If I see that it's him, I know he needs something. He's not just calling with something frivolous. It's just, he's really got a question and he's organized. And yet I certainly have times when, like the 2 hours before my meeting with team on Monday, I have a personal policy, I'm leaving the building, because usually I get up really early, depending on when the sun's up, I'm often up, but that means my start might be 5 or 5:30 in the morning and I'm working until about 9, and at either, 9 or 10, I'm pulling myself away to go for a walk, or maybe it's a workout if it's 116 degrees out. Can't tell you how I know that, but it is. And that time is sacred. And that time is sacred for you too. So that is kind of the extra that I'm going to tell you. I do this on Monday, but it's important to do this and set yourself up for doing this every day to take care of your own health and fitness. So you're walking your talk and you're telling people, draw boundaries, set appointments, keep it like an appointment for the dentist. You wouldn't cancel that last minute, and you have to be doing that too. And, I know a lot of fitness pros, maybe health coaches as well, but we get into it because you're passionate about fitness. You love working out. You love what it's done for you. And yet even us, we can even get away from the doing because we also value some other things. Maybe it's mastery, maybe it's getting things done or being on top of it. And, I struggle, ironically, with, fitting the exercise in now as religiously as I did, partially because I now know all the exercise that I was doing for years. If I had some of that time back, man, I'd have been much further ahead. But, it's not valuable to use all that exercise time just because you have it or you can take it. But also, it's that I want to get certain things done and I want them done a certain way and I want them done on time. And, when I feel like there are too many loose ends and I'm not doing a good job of managing. So instead, I am micromanaging and I didn't pick the right people to be in charge and control of their schedule and report to me, that's on me. I've got to organize them better so they can be better in charge and take ownership of here's where we are, here's what's happening, here's what I need from you. And we may have to troubleshoot, things may not always go right, but that is a piece of what we're doing. And that doesn't get any better just because you don't exercise, right? You're just going to prolong it. So you need to find that time and make sure you can build it in. Because if you don't take care of you, your whole business goes down if you are the business. But I want to share, and while you're growing, you're starting, you want to create a culture of doing it with the end in sight, with the end in view, being able to understand what that's going to look like, even if you can't do it all from the very beginning. So even if right now it's just you, if you do these things every Monday, things will go more smoothly for you and for your team or your eventual team, your dream team. These are the things that we do every Monday. And there are a few things that I'm adding only to the podcast. So be sure that you are listening here as opposed to just skimming. So number one, we use an agenda. And I suggest this again, it's going to sound crazy, but if you are meeting with just yourself, what's on your agenda on Monday morning? Hopefully you've got things and you are looking at all of your social media account platforms. How many people are on them? How many people engaged? What things performed the best? That happens on a Monday. How many people on your email subscriber list? How many people were new this week? How many people unsubscribed this week? Those things are things that would be on your agenda. Meeting with a team, it's a little bit different. So I am asking certain people on my team for those numbers, for podcast numbers, podcast downloads. I'm asking because by mid-month, if we're not halfway to the goal or the minimum goal of this or better is what I want, we have to come up with a strategy. I don't want to know at the end of the month, no, we didn't make it. No. We want to know on the way how to change things. So there are certain things and pieces to the agenda. There are things we go back. We use a tool called Basecamp. There's also Asana. There's several others. And I think one of them is actually ironically called Mondays. But where you can put your tasks in, put deadlines, assign them to certain people, and maybe it's you again, but at least it's all there. It's a dump. It's not something you're committing to your memory. So we use an agenda, we open it up, and we're looking at our task and management schedule as we go through it, so that as we go through and we're talking about something, somebody's saying, oh, yeah, I'll take that. I just created a task for that, and I'll have it done by Wednesday. And then hopefully I get alerted if they're not done by Wednesday, or if they are, I get alerted, because that's the worst thing having going through your head is 70 things where you're like, did that get done? I don't know. I never heard. Did it get finished? Maybe it's not finished, and that's one of the worst possible things, because you wake up in the middle of the night with those things eventually. And you've got so many of them that it's never ending. And that's just not good. So if you got people on your team contributing to that kind of clutter, you've got to fix that right away. But that's you. That's you. And this is why an agenda is so helpful. So create the agenda, from the agenda, go through them one by one and say, here's our objective in going through this item today. By the end of the time we're done talking about it, here's what we're going to do. We're either going to go forward, we're going to have the timeline, or we're going to shelve this discussion for further. It's like being at a meeting at any club, right? Old news, new news, right? So use that agenda though, even for yourself. We also add follow-ups to a task with a deadline. So I alluded to that, but this is really important. So you don't just go through, oh, well, this needs to be done. We need to finish that. Can we do that this week? Yeah. And then we can't just go on to the next thing. Why? Because we're all going to talk about probably 5 more things before we jump off. And then somebody has a meeting right at the top of the next hour. They're not going to remember to come back necessarily. So while we're on, the other people on my team have Basecamp open as well. And if something is theirs, they've put a task, they've created the task, and they've got it on the calendar. So that's really important with a deadline. And what we often say is, here's the latest that this is actually due and done. So we'll put the deadline, the initial deadline, like earlier than that, so that we know that they're progressing to it. We discuss what's going on now, like in this next week, what has to be on our kind of awareness. Like there might be lots of customer questions about this because we're enrolling into a program, we have an open cart, or there may be things that are coming up that have to be done. So when you have an open cart, that means you're going to have new customers. So are all those new customer things finished? Are the videos that need to go to them into the Facebook group, are those done? Are the emails all written that make their experience smooth and easy? And they're done and automated so that you know this is going out and it's going to get dripped. So what's going on now, already in place, what's coming up, what work is there to be done, what needs to just be on everybody's awareness. Like there may be a lot of people demanding that they get into a Facebook group, so be ready to let them in or confirm they do. We talk about those things. We ask for input. One of the things I think it's most important as having been a team member, is when we go around and somebody says, what's going on. And in my case, it used to be what's going on in the personal training department, what's coming up, what problems are we incurring, how do we need to play well with others, if we're using shared spaces, what kinds of concerns are coming up. So giving everybody on my team the opportunity to say, hey, do you have anything we need to talk about today? How's everything going for you? Because our customer service person depends on, our CRM working and firing appropriately. Otherwise, her world is going to be hell. She's going to have a lot of customer service asks about something she doesn't necessarily know how to fix. And we ask our Facebook group community coach for her input, like, what are you hearing? And that creates maybe is there something we need to be aware of? Is there something that we need to handle differently with frequently asked questions, for instance? So we ask everybody for their input. And then a lot of times I will just float out, I've got this idea. Like, first of all, is this possible? What would that entail in terms of costs and fees and time, and when could we have it done? What could go wrong? How could this help? So all of that, so very important. And then last but not least, I do this every Monday. I know this seems sound kind of strange, maybe, is make it okay to make mistakes. I will give examples of mistakes that I've made, and we will talk about, something went out to someone and triggered that they lost access to a program. And we'll talk about, okay, here would be a better way to handle it. This is not necessarily something we want to happen. And first of all, probably we need to regroup before that ever happened, that you ask and confirm this is what I want to happen. And 2, why we would never have handled it that way, and how it would feel if you were in those customers' shoes. And usually in this situation, I can bring up instances, many, where I've made mistakes. Like I misfired, I mistyped, I got a link wrong, whatever. I mean, there are lots of things where I got it wrong. And I point that out because we move quickly, we make more mistakes. It's part of, being an entrepreneur means there's a really good chance you're what's called a quick start. And that means you're going to do it and do it quickly. And you're going to fall forward a whole lot faster than anyone else. Other entrepreneurs, you can do it other ways, but you won't potentially be as successful because those entrepreneurs who learn how to make decisions very quickly, who move forward very quickly, who create and apply, throw it out there very quickly, tend to be the ones who learn the most, the fastest about what works, what doesn't work, how to correct it. You make mistakes along the way, but you usually don't repeat the same mistakes. So you're making bigger and better mistakes, if that's a possibility. But these things are necessary. We're going to make mistakes. Technology sometimes is going to make the mistake, but lots of times, it's going to be humans. You want humans in your team, and it needs to be a safe space so that we can make that kind of mistake and have it be a good place where everybody realizes they're valued and that they're human. And okay, we make that mistake once, we won't do that again. And that's cool. So we try to also connect personally with everybody on the team. So not just going around and saying, hey, Karen, or hey, Becky, or hey, what do you think and how are you? But literally, we take a few minutes at the beginning and say, how's everybody's weekend, or, your holiday, or what are you doing this next week if there's a holiday coming up? And just kind of checking in with people, like what's going on in your personal life. And every once in a while, maybe throwing out a really irrational kind of a question, just that finds out a little bit more about them or gives them insight to other people on their team. So I share a reminder every once in a while about the why of our business, like why we're doing what we're doing and the value to women. I'll share every once in a while a testimonial of somebody, especially if it's a very touching testimonial, and let them in on the behind the scenes, so generally if they're working on creating campaigns and making sure that the website links with the CRM and the products fire and the right tags are applied, they don't always get to see who it is that they're helping by doing those things. And, sharing that really makes a huge difference, I think. It would for anybody who's a caring individual. And I think those are the only kinds of people I'm choosing. So this is a really important one. So taking the time. And I used to be one that just thought, oh my gosh, come on, we got to move on. I've got so much to cover here. I don't have time for this. And now I'm like, oh, I got to slow down here a little bit. And the only reason we're here is because of the people we serve. And the only reason we're able to serve them is because of the people who are doing the serving behind the scenes. And I have to admit that was a weakness for me, that I think it was a matter of stress level and urgency, when I wasn't able to do that for people. But I am now. And so when you can put in your time and you can buy that, and hopefully you can get there a little sooner than I did, that will have significant value for you along the way, because you're really investing in your team and not just in the job that your team is doing. And there's a huge difference. I love our team. I love, connecting with them and, catching up with them. I'm concerned about them in different areas of what might be going on in their lives. And, I know people throw out the term work family, and I don't know if you want to go that far, but, we spend a lot of time either working with, even if you're working on a contractual basis, and you're virtual, you're not working in the same office space, but we're working the same behalf. We're going the same direction. We're moving the same ball or making the attempt to do it. And I think the more you know about each other, the more it makes that just a more fun journey. And sometimes we laugh about the crazy people behind the scenes. It's just like, oh, yep, because there are common denominators, in terms of themes that come up. And there are just 90% of the people in your community will get it, and 10% will be like, I can't find it. Like, okay, let's help them. I don't know how we can make it more apparent, right? But when we can laugh all together collectively about, there's always going to be these people. So how could we help them? How can we make it easier for them? Because everybody is not the same. Yeah. But, it's like when you have a best friend and you need that, tell me it's going to be all right. Tell me that everybody else in the world is crazy, but we're okay. Right. And that's kind of who you want your team to be for you. Okay. So, decide when you exercise. And I started with this. I'm going to emphasize this one again, though. Your personal health and your fitness can't suffer, or your business will. If you are the business, there's no denying this. The 2 hours prior to a meeting on Monday morning, I generally can't be reached, or if I am, I'm on a trail or might be at the gym, and I will answer it if my operations guy calls me, because I know he's not just calling for something frivolous, but it's what has to be true if I'm going to draw the boundaries about how business happens and when I take care of myself. Because as a digital business owner, I've done those days. I think you actually need to. And that's not a popular decision. Some people will say, well, no, never do that. Don't do it at the beginning, because then you'll still be doing it. I don't know. I think you have to put in time. I think you have to roll your sleeves up. I think you have to be willing to put in this 12, 14, 16-hour days. And I think that if you truly love what you're doing and you're on a mission and you're doing the right thing so you can see you're making headway, those days will be worth it. You'll feel good for having done them and gotten through them. Now, early on, I can tell you in 2013, 2014, I spent a lot of time spinning my wheels. Like I didn't know what I was doing and I wasn't understanding what I was trying to learn and trying to understand. And those were frustrating days and long, long days of stress. I would much rather be the exhausted that happens after doing an Ironman. I've said that many times. But when you are, now you're in it, maybe you're creating the videos or you're editing the videos or you're creating the blogs or the podcasts and you're editing those, and that you're reaching a lot of people. You know what your download numbers are and they're increasing and it's driving revenue for you, then it matters. And you can do that. You can put that time in because you can see this is going to pay off. This is working. And that's the only reason I'm here, right? We're increasing our downloads. We're helping a lot of people. We hear back from you that this is so tremendously helpful and that I answered questions that you wouldn't have thought to ask. And that's the whole point of being here and you doing anything. And it makes it worthwhile. So organize your Monday and your everyday. We use a tool I mentioned called Basecamp. And I dump the agenda in that. Usually you do that Sunday night, sometimes not until Monday morning. And it's also where we create the tasks so that each item from the agenda that needs a follow-up or a task done goes in there right away to the team member who's going to take it. And I do a screen share of the agenda while we're going through it. And then we screen share anything else that we need to solve a problem on the spot or talk more about a certain opportunity, or look at, here's what I'm seeing when I log in. And I'm saying, can you fix that? And they're saying, can you show me what you mean? And so it's easy to do. And it's not just the flow of work, it's the energy around the work and the team that you pull together. So by finding the right people, by sharing the vision of what you're doing, and sometimes you've got to share a little piece of that vision every Monday, asking them for input, keeping an eye on an open conversation, you will hate Monday less. Okay. I mean, and Monday is still always Monday, but it will be better. And someday maybe you'll say, I love Mondays, love Mondays. And if you don't love your Monday right now, you're the boss, girl. So change it. I have done this and I've started keeping, nobody touches my schedule. Nobody goes into my schedule till our noon meetings. We have noon to 1 meetings. And that's a little change for my team too. I live in Arizona now and we don't change time zones. And so I recently just said, I don't want to have to meet at 11. I don't want that's an hour out of the creative time that I've got. So I'm going to ask all of you to change with me who don't live in Arizona. I happen to have a teammate who does. But so they have to flip because Arizona does time change. But that was one way that I took back control because I felt like I was losing an hour every 6 months. And that just wasn't working. And I also keep a lighter schedule. So Monday afternoons, if I get 3 or 4 appointments and they might be, 3 or 4 consultations. So it's only, 30 minutes or 20 minutes at a time. But if I get that or I get a client or 2 dropping in, I will block out the rest of my day because Monday, usually after the meeting, there's work for me to do. So the team is like, well, yes, we can do that. We need this from you in order to do that. So I'm like, oh, so this is like homework assignment time for me. So it works best if I get that homework done on Monday right away while I'm thinking about it. Now it's done and I can go on to the rest of the week. So if you need to block your time out to put in what's going here, what am I doing in this time? And sometimes you have to be working in the business or sometimes on the business, but you have to block them both out. Clients, classes, those are easy, right? You're not going to do anything else during that time. You have to just create that elsewhere in your schedule. So I hope that's been helpful. And I know for me, as simple as this may be, it's, I think, a hard thing when you're an entrepreneur. It's like it's wide open, it's fair game. And this may be especially true for you if your partner or anybody else living in your home with you is, also working a lot of hours. It just may be natural for you to do the same. And if they hold you accountable and they're like, well, I want you to be off when I'm off, that may make it easier or harder for you to run your business. But I think if you're a solo entrepreneur and you're also in charge of your time as much as, any individual can be, you have to set some schedules up for yourself. Those that you do work and those that you don't work are equally important. Hope this has been helpful. So show notes today will be at fitnessmarketingmastery.com/do this every Monday. And what are you waiting for? The world needs you now more than ever.